friends, we're going to build a Bazz fuss. I thought this would be a really good starting project because it's a very simple, straightforward circuit, but it sounds fantastic. This is a circuit that, even though I've been building for a long time, I still like to make occasionally, and I still use it when I record. It sounds really good on bass and guitar. It has kind of like a synthy, slightly gated sound. I'm going to try to make this a condensed video, but I'll put some links in the information section. To get started, let's just make sure we have all the stuff we need. So before you turn on your soldering iron, get the sponge that came with it and just put it under a faucet and get it wet. Or use some of this stuff. I actually like to use both. Turn your iron on and let it heat up. It'll be very useful to have some snippers. However, if you're quarantined and you don't have access to a lot of tools, you could also use fingernail clippers or a small pair of scissors. If you have access to more tools, this wire snipper is going to be very useful to you. I would also recommend using a small needle nose plier because it's just good to get in there and do the stuff you got to do. The solder sucker is really good for when you make a mistake. You can easily fix it. I like to use like a little dentist tool or a pocket knife. It can be good for just kind of poking around and moving things and bending things. You're going to need a drill to drill the holes in your enclosure for your jacks, your switch, and your potentiometer. I would recommend a stepped drill bit. They're kind of cool because you can just kind of keep going down and they'll drill to the size you need. Next, we'll go into the supplies that came with your kit. Okay, so here's what I sent you. You're going to have some breadboard. You're going to have an NPN transistor. You're going to have, from smallest to largest value, 100 ohm resistor is going to be used in the power section. A 10 K resistor. That's the one that's brown, black, and orange on the bands. We're going to use that for the LED, for your indicator light when the effect is off or on. Then there's a 100 K resistor, which is going to be used in the heart of the circuit. And then the color bands on that one are brown, black, and yellow. There's going to be some hookup wire. There are 2 capacitors. The electrolytic capacitor is polarized, so it is important when you're looking at the diagram that you're paying attention to that. The negative side on here, we sometimes call them the anode or the cathode. Anyway, the negative side on here, it has a shorter leg, and there's usually a stripe with a little negative symbol, and then the positive sign is the long leg. Your kit may have come with a Tantalum Cap, and that one kind of looks like a fat little wood tick, but the same thing applies where the negative side is the shorter leg. And on the Tantalum Caps, the positive side, they'll have like little plus sides on one side and a long leg. The other capacitor is not polarized, and this is the 0.1 microfarad capacitor. If you look really closely with the magnifying glass, it'll have the number 104 on it. And then you'll have a diode. The diodes are polarized. You'll notice when you look closely, there's going to be a little stripe on one end. And so you want to make sure that matches up with the little diagram. I'm going to put a link to the diagram in the information section. It's going to go to a website. This is home-wrecker.com/bazz.html. And it's going to pull up the diagram. I would recommend, honestly, like printing out the little diagram with the breadboard. And it would be helpful if you maybe printed out the schematic too. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with the transistor. The transistor does have a specific pinout, and if you look at it, one side is flat, okay? And so when you're looking at it in this direction, flat side facing you is going to be emitter, base, collector. So in the diagram, that's E, B, C. And the nice thing about the diagram is it does kind of say CVE on it. So you'll put it in just like that. So the flat side will be kind of facing to the right. Just like that. And if you kind of squish it down a little bit, when you flip it over, it should stay in place. If you have a pair of helping hands, they're like these little things. They're nice. If you don't have them, you know, just fine. You could probably just put the board down. Maybe before we solder it, if we look at the diagram, we do know that the leg on the base kind of needs to go that way. Our ground is going to be down here. So we could just bend them. So I took the leg here, the emitter or the E on your diagram, and I just bent it downward like that. Let's just solder that in place. To get started, just clean the tip of your iron a little bit. You're gonna have to tin your iron. So all that really means is you just put a little bit of solder on the tip of it. Just like that. But you just, you really just like touch the tip of the iron to that little pad. And then just bring the solder down to it. Just like that. So you'll see we have a nice clean little solder there. You want to make sure that you're not getting the pad of the neighboring component or leg. Okay? So if we look at it this way again, we're going to take this base leg and we're just going to bend it this way. Try to get it straight. There we go. And we'll do the same thing. Make sure to clean the tip of your iron between every solder joint that you make. It'll make things go more smoothly, and it'll make your equipment last longer. Equipment, aka your tip. There, just like that. Nice and easy. Okay, so let's do the input capacitor next. So we're gonna want to take the plus side, which is the longer leg, and get it in the column that matches up with B. So that's gonna be the middle leg right there. And we'll just go like this. See that? Okay, now let's flip it over. Bend the leg. And we'll have to do a couple little solder passes here. I think the first thing I'll do is just like clip this right here. And then we'll solder right here in the middle. There we go, just like that. Make sure you don't solder it to these other two leads. And you know what, we'll just do a little cleanup and solder at this end as well. Cool. And then this leg here, we'll just bend it so it's kind of out of the way for now. All right, so let's just do that. Okay, that's what it's gonna look like on the front. If we flip it over, it'll sort of look like a weird T crop circle alien kind of shape. All right. Let's do the diode next, all right? If you look at the diagram, you'll notice the diode is polarized, and the diagram will indicate that the line should be facing to your left. So there's going to be a little line at the end of the diode. We're going to want to connect this from C, which is the collector, to the little bar going between B, or the base, and that cap. Do this. If you're working with a tighter space, I'll just do that so you can kind of see how it's done. All right. So basically, the little line will be at the top of the diode. If it were laying flat there, the line would be facing to our left. All right, so if we flip that over, we will bend one that way and bend one that way. Okay. Sometimes you have to move your board around just to get a better angle to do your solder joint, and that's okay. All right, probably do a little snip here. And I'll snip here. And honestly, like, we could probably, this isn't necessary, but I kind of like just cleaning things up a little bit. I just put a little solder on the pad that the diode is on. All right. So we're looking at it from the top. That's what it looks like. Probably the next thing we'll do is the 100K resistor. And so that's your resistor that has the brown, black, and yellow. And we'll just do kind of the same thing where we bend one side like that. And let's just put it up here. And then just kind of bending some stuff. Now, since I didn't clip that leg earlier, we can just like reuse that one. That'll be really easy. If your resistor is like falling out when you're trying to do this, you can use a little piece of tape to hold it in place while you are flipping things around. All right, so let me solder that little spot there. There. So I literally just soldered both of those onto one pad. And I'm gonna have a little wiggle room on that beam there because I need to get one more component in. We'll do that one next, but let's clip this leg sticking straight up. Okay. So this is what it's gonna look like on top. Okay. If we flip it over, that's kind of what we have going on. or if you flip it upside down. Okay. Now, if we look at the diagram, we'll notice that there should be a capacitor somewhere in here. And that's going to be our output capacitor. And in your kit, it's a little one that looks like this. It's the 0.1 capacitor. And so I'm just going to put it in right there. Actually, I'll go down one lower. There. Easy. This one probably will fall out when you're flipping stuff around, but you know. You can use a piece of tape, or you can try to bend it so it stays in place. But yeah, it's kind of the same thing. If I'm going kind of fast here, feel free to hit pause or rewind. Sort of the nice thing about, I thought I'd upload this on YouTube, just make things a little bit easier for everyone. Excuse me. Don't breathe in the solder fumes. If you have a fan, that will be ideal. Get a fan going, suck the fumes out. All right, so this will just kind of come back to it later. Now, the top here, that's going to be going to your 9-volt power. The drawing doesn't have this, but I wanted to put a little like power filter in there. So we'll just take the 100 ohm resistor. And what this is going to do is, like, when you get power coming directly from the wall wart, it'll kind of help get rid of some buzzing and stuff. It's not polarity protected because I didn't want to get too overboard with this really simple starter circuit. But this will definitely help reduce some of the noise. So on the back here, you remember how we bent the leg on the 100K? Let's just trim it back. God, I'm sorry I keep hitting that. That's aggravating. Gonna make you all dizzy. So we'll just like snip that, maybe right there. And then let's go ahead and add resistor right here. Okay. So that's your 100 ohm. And I think I will grab a piece of tape. I think the painter's tape or masking tape works best, but I just have scotch nearby, so I'll just use that for now. And then we're just going to want to solder this in place. Alright, I'm going to see if I can raise this. I won't keep smacking into it. Goodness. It's better. Okay. So that's what we're looking at now. Let's trim that one off. So that's going to be our 9-volt hookup. I'm going to grab a little piece of wire. Just kind of want to carefully pull some of the plastic off the end. Just give it a little twist, just like that. It doesn't have to be overboard. Do the same thing on the other side. That's about all we need, so that's good. Okay, and then we need to tin the wire, because otherwise when you try working with it, it's gonna like get splayed and be really hard to work with. To tin the wire, it's just like tinning any other component. Put some solder on your iron and just kind of add a little bit there. If you get a gloop, or a glob or a blob or whatever word you want to use, you can kind of whisk it off with the hot iron. It does melt like butter, like butter. Put that there. I'm gonna actually use a piece of tape. And just make sure you're cleaning your iron between solder points. The other thing we might as well do since we're here is you're gonna have this 10 K resistor, and that's gonna, we'll use that for the LED switch on your or for the LED, your indicator LED. Just take that 10 K resistor, bend it like so, and we're just gonna place that somewhere on the power line here. I'll actually just do it right next to the resistor we just did. Okay, just like that. You know what, just to be safe, why don't we widen it just one more hole on the pad, just like that. Just so we have a little bit more wiggle room, because we don't want to solder stuff together. We'll still have plenty of room. That's what it's going to look like, okay? And then just grab your tape and kind of tape your component in place. And then the first thing I'll do is solder the one that's on the 9-volt rail. So it'll look just like that, okay? And then let's give that a snip. And then this one here, let's just bend it kind of towards the side here like we did with that other one. And we'll snip it right like right here. Let's grab another piece of wire. You need a little bit longer piece because this is going to need to make it down to your foot switch. A piece of tape. And let's just solder that in place, okay? And that's what it looks like, all right? So you have your power, your 9-volt power rail, and then you're gonna have your LED, your indicator LED wire. And then the next wire we're gonna hook up is gonna be our input wire. So just grab another piece of wire. Now, if the wire doesn't go through, you might have to just push it over a little bit. All right, there we go. Cool. So this is kind of what we're looking at here. All right, so that's what the top of the board looks like, okay? It should match your diagram. It does have the, you know, the extra, couple extra things. It has that extra resistor, and then that. But that's just to filter your power, and that's for your LED, okay? And if we flip it upside down, that's kind of what we're looking at. All right. I have one of these. Mine happens to be 1 meg, which is way too high for the circuit, but I'm gonna have you get an A100K. If you can't find an A100K, just try like a A250K or a B100K. They'll all work fine for this circuit. 1 meg's too much though. But anyway, I'll use it for the point of this demonstration. When you're looking at the pot from this angle, this is leg 1, 2, and 3. And usually with a volume potentiometer, the signal goes into leg 3, out leg 2, and then leg 1 is usually connected to ground. So we'll do exactly that. Now we know from our diagram that this is the output signal, okay? So I'm just gonna hook up the pot accordingly. And the spacing will be kind of like that. The pot that came with your kit, if you're having trouble getting it to go all the way through, you know, you can kind of wiggle it. You know, don't like poke yourself, but it will fit. Now, if I had planned ahead a little bit better, actually this is good because then it's not going to ground out on a diode. But when it sits in there, it's going to be slightly angled, which is fine. It'll still totally work okay. Now you'll notice this is just like touching leg 3 already. So all you really need to do is solder that. So let's just do that right now. All right. And I'll do it here too. Cool. And then I'll just kind of like clip off the extra stuff. And I'll just leave that. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. Now you remember that the E for this little buddy should go to ground. So when you flip it over, you'll kind of see that we started doing that. It's not going to really reach, but what we can do is we'll just take one of these other wires, because we've been like snipping stuff like left and right, and we'll just kind of recycle some stuff. And recycling's good. It's good for the planet, or, you know, all that stuff. But like I said that in like a voice like, but I actually mean it though. So just like take a little recycled leg just like that, and then let's solder it. Like, I'm still bumping the damn camera. Good Lord, what is wrong with me? I was way more focused last night. I think today I'm just sort of like kind of a mess. I'm a mess. Okay. So let's get this first one on the leg. This is leg 1. All right, we'll just hit it in that little middle section. You can trim those if you wanna. You don't really need to. It's like whatever, but I suppose I'll do it. I'll probably leave that one as is though. All right. Let's hook a wire up there because we're gonna use that for ground on the power supply. So that's connected to the ground plane there. So it's going to the emitter, and it's also going to leg 1 of the potentiometer. There's one last thing we will need to do, and that's going to be hooking up a output wire on this middle leg, okay? Probably the easiest way to do that is we'll just put a little bit of solder on that leg just to start with. All right. Get a little bit of a blob going, nothing too wild though, okay? But that's, you know, it's in place, so we're good to go. And then we'll just grab a wire and we'll just solder that directly to the leg, okay? And that's our output wire. So this thing is actually like fully wired up. Okay. I'm gonna shoot it from a few different angles so you can just kind of, I'll bend the pot out of the way so you can just kind of see how things are going. So the first thing I'll do is the top view. All right, so here's a top view. If we flip it over this way, this is what we're going to be looking at. This would be cool. You can pause your screen and just see if yours matches. Do note, these are the transistor legs. You'll note they're not connected to one another. A couple people were having trouble with that before. They're connected to other things, but they're not connected to each other. All right, so that's what our bottom looks like. Feel free to pause this, take a screenshot, or whatnot. Okay. And the nice thing about the transistor there is it actually prevents me from like grounding out the pot on those other components. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That is a completed board. I'll do the off-board wiring, so that's the enclosure and everything. I'll do that in a separate video, because that's a whole other animal. But you'll need to do both things to get the pedal done. I might enlist the help of a friend to help do the video for the off-board. But yeah, that's gonna involve like wiring up the jacks and the foot switch and your indicator LED. So this is your completed board. If you've done this, give yourself a pat on the back, go take a breather, stretch, run a lap around your house if you don't have anyone nearby. And good work. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Okay, and I'll get the enclosure video very soon.